What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another video from the 10-7 MMA channel. And today, we're going to talk about this fight that's coming up at the next big UFC event, Stipe versus Jon Jones. And the reason I want to talk about this fight is because I feel like a lot of fans are being very negative about this fight. They don't want to see it. They want to see Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall, or maybe in a fantasy matchup against Francis Ngannou. There's a lot of reasons. Or people also feel like Jon Jones should not be having a title fight, as Tom Aspinall has done such tremendous things, and they're saying Jon Jones is ducking Tom Aspinall. So I wanted to talk about the history of Jon Jones. I'm not even going to focus on this whole drama between Tom Aspinall. I made another video about it already, where I talked about the fact that, look, this is the UFC making the decision. This is not Jon Jones ducking, I don't think, anyways. He called out Stipe well before Tom Aspinall had the interim title. And again, Tom Aspinall won the interim title because Jon Jones had to pull out due to an injury. Now, granted, that was a while ago, and maybe that has changed the landscape of the heavyweight division, but this fight was scheduled. It was promised to Stipe, promised to Jon Jones. The UFC is holding true to their word. I don't have a huge problem with it. I'm actually still quite excited. And let's see, maybe Jon Jones will fight Tom Aspinall after, if he does win, or Stipe will. I actually don't think either will fight him, and I've talked about that in the Jon Jones video. I do think it's important that the UFC has Jon Jones retire on top. I think they have their own motivation for that, but whatever it is, regardless, I mean, there's so many times when we have these amazing champions, amazing fighters that have these storied careers. They're incredible, and then they start losing. And we feel so sad for them when they lose, and they have multiple losses in a row. We see that happening to Tony Ferguson right now, and we don't want that. None of us as fans want that. So this is a chance for the greatest fighter of all time, arguably, to retire on top. Khabib retired on top, and I think everybody was very happy to see that. So this is going to be a similar situation, and people are just so upset. And I think we've lost sight of who Jon Jones is and what he's accomplished, and we should just be happy that we get to see this amazing fighter who's done so many tremendous things come back and fight one more time. I'm also not going to talk about any personal stuff that's gone on in Jon Jones' life, because it's not relevant, I don't think, to this conversation. I'm purely focusing on him as a fighter, the tremendous things that he's achieved, and why we should be so excited about this fight. So without further ado, we're going to jump through the history of Jon Jones, just so we can remember. And there's a lot of newer fans that don't really know who Jon Jones is and don't know all the things that he's done in the past. And I'm actually only going to look at a fraction of his fights, not all of his fights, but namely since he won the title. And we're going to go through everybody that he's beaten and how incredible it is. So for you newer fans, you may not have known all these guys that he's beaten, but he's beaten just a killer's row of fighters. So without further ado, let's start with Jon Jones versus Mauricio. This is the first time he won the belt, and this is back in 2011. So for those of you new fans, this is 13 years ago, and he's still champion. He's never lost the belt. So imagine that. This is insane. And as incredible as we're seeing fighters perform today and do these amazing things like Alex Pereira, Ilia Topuria, put it in perspective here. This is a guy that's been competing for 13 years, and he's been the champ the entire time. This is insane, except for when he vacated the lightweight belt to move up to heavyweight. But other than that, he's never lost the title. And I know there's some controversial wins, but let's really look back and remember all the victories he has had. And even if you want to say he lost to Dominick Reyes, or maybe some of these decisions were close, or whatever it may be, it's still, what he's done is mind-boggling, and I think we should be appreciative of it and be excited to see him fight again. So this is the first champion that Jon Jones defeated. Defeated Mauricio Hua back in 2011. Then his next fight was against Rampage Jackson. Those of you guys who may be new fans may not know Rampage Jackson, but you might know him from his podcast, the Jackson Podcast, which is a tremendous podcast. But anyways, Rampage Jackson was so feared back in the day. He was an amazing champion. Jon Jones went in and defeated him. So that's the second champion he defeated. Now, if we even look at current champions today, you're going to see that the total of defeats that Jon Jones has over, at the time, previous or current, or they would be future champions, is unbelievable. So then next, he goes on and he beats Lyoto Machida. If you don't remember Lyoto Machida, he was a stud back in the day. An amazing martial artist. He had a karate background. Go back and watch this fight. This was a tremendous knockout the way he finished this fight. So that was again in 2011. By the way, look at that activity. 3 fights in 2011. I know he gets a lot of flack for being inactive nowadays, but back in the day, he was like Alex Pereira. 3 fights in 1 year. He was the man everybody was talking about Jon Jones and his creativity in both striking and grappling. Now we move on to Rashad Evans, who he beat in April 21st of 2012. Again, another champion, a really, really seasoned, terrific fighter, and he took him down as well. Next, he goes on to fight Vitor Belfort. He's an OG of the game. He was a champion long time before 2012, came back to fight Jon Jones, and Jon Jones took him down as well. So at this point, this is 5 champions that he had defeated just by 2012, which is crazy that he's still the running, is still on top, and now at the heavyweight division. Now I move on to Chael Sonnen. Chael Sonnen was never a champion, but he did defeat Chael Sonnen. This was a close fight. Jon Jones actually broke his toe in this fight, and this was crazy. And if Chael Sonnen would not have been finished, it is possible that he would have defeated Jon Jones via doctor stoppage because he had a broken toe. And I think since this time, he's always had to tape his 2 biggest toes on his right foot or his left foot, wherever he broke the toe going forward. And that's something he's done throughout his career since this toe break. Next, he had this amazing fight against Alexander Gustaffson, which was a very, very close fight. And I think it's in the Hall of Fame, either this one or the second time he fought Gustaffson. So he had a crazy brawl with Gustaffson. Gustaffson is an incredible fighter. He trained with Hamzat Chimaev out of Stockholm. And you guys should look this one up if you haven't seen it yet. Then he goes on to take on Glover Teixeira. Now, Glover Teixeira wasn't champ yet. He became a champ later on. But still, that's a champ, future champ, that he defeated back in 2014. Now we're just at 10 years ago, okay? Next, he fights Daniel Cormier in 2015. Daniel Cormier, one of the greatest fighters of all time in the history of the UFC, heavyweight and lightweight, double champ. And he goes down to take on Jon Jones. Jon Jones beats him in 2015. They had a very heated rivalry. This was huge for the UFC. Now we move on. He takes on Ovince St. Preux, or OSP, a tremendous athlete at the time, and he did beat him as well. It was never a champion, so that doesn't move the champion's defeated meter, but was a tremendous fight. Next, we come up to Daniel Cormier again. Now, technically, this is another defeat of a champion. This fight was crazy, and Daniel Cormier was doing incredibly well. He prepared super hard. He talked about it in the lead-up. I think it was close in the 3rd round. And then Jon Jones, I remember watching this fight. It was so crazy. Jon Jones landed this amazing head kick. I think he even predicted that he was going to land it because Cormier had a habit of dipping his head to the right when I think Jones would feint or throw a punch. I don't remember exactly, but he had this bad habit of dipping his head, and Jon Jones timed the kick perfectly, caught him right on the head. He was very dizzy, and then he chased him down. He chose a very intelligent selection of shots to take him down. I believe attacking the legs, not going for headshots, just to try and knock him down. And then he finished, I think it was with a ground and pound, and that was a brutal defeat. Now, the reason why I'm not counting this as another defeat of a champion is this was later overturned because of a failure of a drug test. I think it was turinabol that was found in his system. Again, personal stuff and the drug use stuff, I'm not going to get into it because I'm just haven't researched it. I don't know the ins and outs of it. I know a lot of people talk about that, but look, at the end of the day, it was ruled a no contest. It was still a tremendous fight. I don't know the ins and outs. I don't know how much of it was in his system or any of that. Just saying that's part of the story, but still, this was an amazing fight if you did see it. I just want to point that out. So Daniel Cormier, somebody we're very familiar with. He beat him twice. Again, that was overturned, but still. Then we have Gustaffson 2. He takes him on again, and that's pretty amazing that he took him on again because he had a very difficult fight with him the first time. This time he finished him, I believe. And I just think that was cool that he actually was open to taking him on again for a rematch. Next, he takes on Anthony Smith in 2019, and he defeats Anthony Smith. I can't remember the specifics of this fight. There was something where Anthony Smith could have, I think there was some illegal strike or something where he could have bowed out from the fight and basically taken the belt via disqualification, but he chose to fight on. Jon Jones won. But, props to Anthony Smith he didn't want the belt that way. He didn't want the belt from a disqualification. I can't remember again what it was, but he fought on. Maybe it was an eye poke or something, but he fought on, and Jon Jones beat him. Again, Anthony Smith, one of the toughest fighters in that division. Then he takes on Thiago Santos. It was a very close fight. I've heard some people say that they think Thiago maybe won, but it was a very, very close fight. Great fight, difficult fight. Jon Jones came out victorious again. Now, this is the fight that's probably the most controversial against Dominick Reyes. It was a very, very close fight. I think everybody felt that Jon Jones won rounds 4 and 5. 1, 2, and 3, I think a lot of people felt Dominick Reyes took those rounds. Dominick Reyes at the time was undefeated. And look, this is the game we play. if you leave it to the judges, you got to accept what the judges say. And regardless of what people have come back after the fact, looking at it closely, I mean, that's not how the game works. The game works by the judge's decision at the time of the fight in real time. Those are the rules that we have agreed to. So it is what it is. He got the decision win. Maybe it was closer than some people would like to admit, but he won. So his record continued, minus the illegal elbows against Mark Hamill, which he did take a loss for, and that whole rule has been overturned since, so we're not focusing on that. But for all intents and purposes, undefeated record still throughout this. And then we come to the last fight. You notice there was a 3-year layoff, but again, he was putting on size to move up to heavyweight. This is back in March 4th of 2023, where he beat Cyril Gane. Now, Cyril Gane was the interim champion, I think, at the time. Or, yeah, I think he was the interim champion, or he was previously the interim champion. So I'm counting this as another defeat of a champion. And I think Cyril Gane is amazing. He's very underestimated in the heavyweight division, but nobody has ever moved like him. He's a tremendous striker. And maybe his grappling is not the strongest, but he put on an amazing fight against Francis Ngannou, a razor-thin, close decision, if you guys remember. And it was because of the ground game. He went for a heel hook in round 5. That failed, and I think he was criticized for that. But he was right in there, almost beat Francis Ngannou. I do want to say that Francis Ngannou did have a terrible knee injury at the time, so maybe it wouldn't have been as close if he wasn't so heavily injured. But it was a great fight, and Cyril Gane's done some really cool things. Jon Jones made quick work of Cyril Gane in the first round of that fight to win the heavyweight title. Now he's a two-way champ, one of the very few two-way champions. And it could be the closing of the story on Jon Jones's career. And I think we should all tune in, regardless of how we feel about him having the belt, about this being a title fight, about wanting Tom Aspinall to face Jon Jones. And by the way, while I don't think that will happen, that could happen. So let's see. Who knows? Jon Jones may surprise us all and call out Aspinall, and I could be very wrong. But regardless, he's had an incredible career. And even if it's not the exact fight we want, it's a legacy fight. Now, I also want to talk about Stipe. I didn't create any slides for Stipe, but Stipe has beaten so many people. He beat Daniel Cormier twice. He beat Junior Dos Santos. He's beaten Alistair Overeem. He beat Francis Ngannou, by the way. He beat Francis Ngannou, who so many people wanted to see Francis go against Jon Jones. Stipe is no joke. Yes, he's had a layoff. Yes, he's a little bit in the upper range of his age, but everybody is just crapping on him so hardcore, and it just doesn't make sense when, especially, you see guys like Glover Teixeira win the belt, especially in the heavyweight division at the age of 40 or 41 or whatever it may be. Heavyweights have generally a longer span in their athletic career. It is what it is, and so we see that time and again. So I don't know how Stipe is going to perform. We haven't really seen much training footage and much sparring footage, and I think that's par for the course. But my main point is, this is a historic fight. I think we will look back on it 5 or 10 years from now as arguably the greatest fighter of all time against the greatest heavyweight champion of all time, with Stipe's multiple title defenses, all the things he's pulled off and accomplished in the heavyweight division. This is a great fight. Let's be excited. It's happening. There's no turning back. Maybe we'll get to see something that you guys want to see afterwards, whether it's Tom Aspinall, whether the MMA gods come together and we get Jon Jones versus Francis Ngannou, arguably one of the biggest fights of all time. Who knows? But let's enjoy it right now. This is a legacy fight, and we're going to get to see Jon Jones compete at least one more time. So let's enjoy it. That's all I got to say. Thank you guys so much for joining. If you like this video, make sure to click that like button. If you want to see more from the 10-7 MMA show, make sure to click subscribe. Thank you guys so much for joining. We'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.